Well, hello, Radiant Church. I am standing at the corner of Washougal River Road and I Street. And originally, it used to be 17th and I. And what's significant about this location? It's this church building. Why are we standing here? Well, now currently it's the Salvation Army Church. But originally, it was our church building. Our church got started in 1949. Down the road there, just by Wild Willie's, in a little house church or a Bible study. Then, not long after that, they built this building, and this was our church building for decades, until 1996, when we finally moved to our current location. But when I first started coming to the church, this is what we called our church building. This is where we met. And I have so many memories of this place. Right here, where you see all this grass, that used to be the church parking lot. That building over there wasn't there. It was a little annex. That's where they had the children's ministry, and the nursery was in a separate building. Right here, actually, when I was 17, I was driving late on a rainy night to meet someone at the church, and I missed the turn, and I smashed into this curb and blew out my two front tires. But I have better memories than that in this building. So why are we here? Well, I want to tell you the story of J.R. Trotter. Well, who is J.R. Trotter? My senior year of high school. He was a new kid. And about a month in or so, he wanted to ask someone out to homecoming. And who did he ask? But the pastor's daughter of the daughter of the pastor who pastored at this church at that time. And he wanted to ask her out to homecoming, and she did not want to go with him. So she was desperately trying to find someone else to go with, and so she thought of my best friend, who in the whole time of high school only had a girlfriend for 3 months of that time, or 3 weeks rather, of that time, and happened to be right during the time of homecoming. And so she found out, oh, he's got a girlfriend, I can't ask him to homecoming. And so a mutual friend said, you should ask his friend Jeremy. And so she did. She asked me to homecoming and found out she was the daughter of the pastor here, and she said, you should come. And so I did. Long story short, I started attending the church, and for over a year, was attending the church. And at that point, God was really just a concept to me. I thought going to church was a good thing. I thought it was an appropriate thing to do. I believed the Bible was true. I believed that God was real, but He wasn't real to me. And all that changed on one August day in 1995 when I was sitting right just about 2 windows in there. I was sitting just on the pew, and I was listening to the pastor preach, and I thought to myself, this is good. There's something about this that is just so good. It's not just a well put together speech or sermon. There's just life in this. And I'd never experienced anything like this before, but I heard the Lord speak to my heart and said, you're going to be doing that someday. That flipped me. I almost fell out of the pew because that was not my mind. That was not my thinking. I had no desire to be a preacher at that point. And yet I knew that God was speaking to me. So what I did is that moment led me to go have a conversation with my pastor and say, let me tell you about what just happened. And he said, and I had all kinds of questions about the church and God, and he said, go and read Scripture. And he had me do that. And while I was reading, all of a sudden, God became not just a concept, He became real to me. I realized, I stood up and I said, Jesus is alive. And I realized, if God is God, then I want to give my whole life to Him. And I stood up and I said, I'm just a poor college student, God, but all I have is my future, and I give it all to You. And I sang and I worshiped and I surrendered my life to Him. And that set me on a journey to where what God initially spoke to me on that pew actually came true. And not only was I doing that one day, I was preaching. I actually became the pastor of the very church that I was sitting in at that moment. So what's the point of that story? 2 things. One is it all started, in a sense, with J.R. Trotter. Had he not come to school, had he not asked the pastor's daughter out to homecoming, had she not responded to that ask by trying to find desperately some other person to go with, I would never have been sitting on that pew. And so what is the point of that? Is that God is sovereign. Every single moment, every tiny little detail of your life is something that He directs and He orders. It all has meaning, the good, the bad, and the ugly. His love is in all of it. And so there's no such thing as a wasted day. There's no such thing as a wasted moment. Every moment has purpose. Even a guy asking a girl out to homecoming. Look what came of it. And also, the second thing is that God is sovereign, but we have to play our part as well. When God spoke to me when I was sitting there, if I had not gone to the Scriptures, if I had not opened myself up to that, if I had not responded to Him in that way, nothing else would have happened. And so every day has meaning. God is sovereignly in control, and as we surrender to Him, your whole future can look completely different. So my encouragement to all of you is this: don't treat every day as if with this reality. Treat every day understanding, God, you are alive and well today, and there is meaning in everything you're doing. Help me to be inclined to your direction and to surrender myself to you. I give my future to you. I give this day to you, and see what it'll do. Blessings on you.